Down your baby and pick up a beer. Dad Jokes is back with a brand new episode. I'm Jerry, joined here by Brandon, and you're listening to the podcast of two dads going through the journey of fatherhood with all of you listening while we make our mistakes along the way. So, Brandon, what is going on, my friend? How are you?
Jerry, I am great. Sometimes, and you probably can relate to this, your work days are stressful, but I was talking to somebody about this earlier. What's great is I walk through that door at home, I take a deep breath before I walk in there, and generally there's a happy kid waiting on me who just, between him, my wife having stuff together at home, it's just like, home is a de-stressful place, if that's a word. So, I am good. How are you?
Well, it's funny you described that because normally I feel exactly the same, but my experience tonight might have been the exact opposite. Macy's probably going to get mad at me for saying this, but I came home from worked a long day, walked in the door, Peyton's screaming on the couch. Macy's got the house in shambles. There's stuff everywhere. I'm like, it looks like a bomb went
you
off.
You about to pay for that, bro.
Yeah, I probably am. But I'm like, what is going on? I just had a day, and now it's and quickly, within 30 minutes and stuff, get stuff put away, and Peyton ended up being good. She needed some food, and she was happy. We had a little bit of fun before bedtime. She's been a goofball tonight, so everything worked out, and it all ended up helping to de-escalate the stress, as you say. But it was funny because I normally think that too, and I walked through the door and I was like, oh, this is not what I need right now. But it all turned around.
It's like that sometimes. We all are trying to tread water at times.
Exactly. But Brandon, before we get too far into what else has been going on, this show got its name because we like to tell jokes on here. Specifically, we like to tell dad jokes. So do you want to lead today or do you want me to lead?
I'll lead because I got a pretty mediocre joke. I struggled finding one this week, but I think I came up with something that's pretty good. And I'm going away from my rated R. What I was trying to do was find a nice, clean, dirty joke. This was taking me forever, and then it just didn't happen. But I digress. Jerry, what martial art do monkeys practice?
I feel like I know this one.
Flung poo.
Flung poo. I like
Flung
it.
poo.
Mine's just okay today too. It's not rated R either, so I don't think that I'm gonna brag too much about mine. It's decent. It made me chuckle, but it's not like last week's were great. This week is not quite as great, but it is a good one.
What the listeners don't realize is last week you said you had a couple great ones, but you had some that you told me after we stopped recording that were even better.
Yeah, you probably laughed the hardest I've ever seen you laugh at one of my jokes, at one of the ones I told after the fact. But that one I will not. I will not take.
Ever said, Jerry.
I can't take credit for it. That was from my wife as well. So great job, Macy, coming up with some great jokes. I don't even know where she got them from, but they were fantastic. But Brandon, what else has been going on with you guys this past week?
This has been an eventful week for Bryce. So luckily, knock on wood, we're not. We are fully past any sickness. He's been good for a couple weeks. And he went to his first organized class, something that Kelsey we had a wedding that we went to a couple weeks ago, and she was talking to one of the moms. And this individual is a stay-at-home mom and we're going to kind of get into one of the things that happened to Kelsey in our tips a little later on, but stay-at-home mom, and she was talking to Kelsey about all these different activities that she had her kid in, partly because she has the time during the day to take the kid to these activities. She's
right.
A part of a mom group that meets during the day, and the tough part from a parent standpoint, who especially if you got two parents that work full time, is you can. I'm almost alluding to one of my tips later, like I mentioned, but. It makes you feel a little guilty, like I should be doing more. What can we be doing more?
Oh, for sure.
Kelsey, she immediately it affected her. She immediately looked up classes that we could put Bryce in, and next day signed him up for a tumbling class at one of the local gyms. So last week was his first week there. Last Saturday. It occurs on Saturdays. I worked, so I wasn't able to make it, but I'm excited because I'll be going this Saturday. and apparently he had a blast. He didn't really get or understand the actual activities that was supposed to happen, but he was playing around with like the different like soccer balls, basketballs that they had there, running around. Didn't have any like inhibitions about meeting other kids. Something we'll
That's what
have to
it's all
work
about,
on.
Brandon. That's what it's all about. Just
100%,
socializing
100%.
and having fun.
He would go up to other kids, and he was the youngest person in the class. It seems that some of the other kids have done this class before, so they have an idea what's going on. But he does this thing where he will walk up to him, and he loves to share. He absolutely does. It's something that we teach him. But in order to share, he needs something. So whatever they have, he takes from them to give it back. And if you know anything about like 2 to 3 year olds, they do not like that. So
No.
apparently he caused a couple little small minor meltdowns. And then he immediately gave the toy back. He just wanted to share with them, which, if from my view, is hilarious. We'll see how things go on Saturday.
God.
But overall, it was a good day for him. He definitely had a good time, and it's just, I wasn't there, but I've seen it when we're at like family get-together. It's just fun, like watching your kid, like something like that we don't see enough of. From our view, so watching how he interacts with other kids and like how much he wants to be involved, stuff like that, super fun. And then on Monday, he got to my parents' house and they took him to the local children's museum, and they had like a day there, and he's going around interacting with a lot of different like activities there. So he had a fun week. He's been sleeping well. He is talking. He's doing this thing now where I'm like listening to music and singing all the time in the house and dancing. He looks forward to dancing with me, but he also like, he's getting to the point where he can he can't quite sing, but he's like, he's stringing together like the same sounds. Like it's almost like he's trying to sing, which I hadn't heard yet before. So it's been a fun week. He definitely coming home is like a joy because it seems like he's doing something different every day. So those are a couple highlights from this last week. What you guys been up to?
Well, it's funny you mentioned the class thing because we kind of experienced something similar. Macy was actually getting kind of nervous that Peyton was getting like, social anxiety almost, where she would be like super shy when we got in groups for a while. So she joined a gym and swim class recently, and then she's been going to like the local I don't even know what you call it, but they do like gymnastics type stuff too, but it's kind of just open. And so the last couple gym and swim classes, Peyton's been doing okay, but she's kind of still been reserved and wanting to hang around. And I haven't been able to go either, but I've been kind of, getting pictures and listening to Macy on it. But then today she went to gymnastics actually with one of our friends who was on the show, Ryan, his daughter, came over and they all went to this gymnastics type of class together, and I guess Peyton was doing great today. We're interacting with other kids, involved, having a lot of fun, less social anxiety, so I think that's helping. So that was exciting. But it's like you said, Brandon, you get in your head like, is she not around other kids enough? Is she not doing classes enough? What's going on? And every kid's different, but it is good to get them around other kids, I think, and having them do stuff. So that's been fun. This week,
in the back of your head, you don't want to raise a weird kid.
Yeah,
Someone deepest fear.
Exactly. Or have the kid that's like 6 and still clung to you. So yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
But the big thing for us this week was this is kind of crazy, but some of you parents might have experienced this. So Peyton has always gone to the bathroom regularly. She's the kid that pretty much poops multiple times a day since birth. Like, very little. If she doesn't go to the bathroom at least once in a day, at least, like, and I'm talking poops, it's weird, really weird.
I hear a butt coming.
Yeah, but she went multiple days, and it got to the point where it was day 4, and that's super rare for her. I mean, it's never happened. I say rare; it's never happened before. But she was in pain, like where the point where she was like grunting, like you could tell she was trying to go to the bathroom, but she couldn't. Multiple times a day. She was super clingy. She just did not feel good. And it was tough because you see your kid in pain and she's not being herself. And we were trying to give her prune juice. We were giving her, fruits. We were giving her water, different things. We were doing the bicycles, with her legs, rubbing her stomach, trying to do different things to like help. But it got to the point where we basically like called the pediatrician and we're like, hey, what should we do? And they're like, well, let's call you back And then right before they called back, she finally went to the bathroom. And she's gone like 5 times in the last 2 days. So
what was the status of that
good.
first poop?
It was very, very, very hard, is what I was told. I was not home for it. But she's been, since that happened, she's been in a much better mood, and you could tell more herself. But that was tough. That was, because what can you do? And you can't like have a conversation with them at this age, like letting them know like, hey, this is what's going on. You need to go to the, you know what I mean? So it was kind of interesting. But we got through it. And I can't tell you what worked because we tried pretty much everything, but eventually it did happen. But they do tell you
will work, and them telling you, "Hey, this is that isn't that important."
Yeah. Right, well, basically, what they say too.
That's another one of my things later.
Yeah. Well, what they do say though, Brandon, we kind of looked it up. Is if the kid goes basically 5 days, that's when you should probably go in. So she was about that point, but not quite there. But that's the magic number. Other than that, the last couple of days since she's gone to the bathroom, she's been walking a lot more. It's odd because in our basement, she walks great. She walks all over the place, 10, 15, 20 steps at a time. Upstairs, does not like to walk on the big, thicker carpet we have, or the thicker rug we have, and like the hardwood floor. So it depends on the surface we're on, how much she likes to walk and stuff. But she's doing better with it, definitely trying more and more engaged in it. And one thing I noticed too that's kind of cool, Brandon, is we always read to her, and she's always loved books, but she seems to be more interested in me actually reading her books lately, as opposed to just looking at, before I would read, but she'd be playing with other books or like, like all over the place. Now, like, she'll hand me a book and want me to read it, which is kind of fun. Like today she was handing me a book and then wants me to read it, or like I'll finish a book and then she'll like be like, no, read it again. Like, so that's kind of cool. So I'm hoping that continues and she like picks up on some stuff. So I know we're going to trying to like do more stuff with like colors and shapes and things like that. Cause she can now touch she knows where her nose, her ears, her mouth, her feet are, and her belly. So she's pretty good at all those, although she doesn't like when you try to make her a show pony and show other people. She gets mad. But she knows where they all are, and if she's in the mood, she'll show you right away. So that's kind of cool too.
Yeah, we Bryce got to the point probably about a month ago where he was the same way with books, and I don't want to say it got annoying because it isn't annoying yet, but the dude will he'll go hand you a book, let you read a couple pages, then he'll want to flip to whatever page he wants
Correct,
to.
Yes.
And flip back and forth, and he's like genuinely looking, and then he'll want you to keep doing it while he goes and grabs a different book that he then wants you to swap out with it, and it just is a never-ending cycle of bringing new book. And those love every nothing books that basically just have a bunch of like faces on them, or items. They're like his favorite thing in the world. So.
Peyton did that today. She wanted me to read a book, then she switched, and then she wanted me to go back to the original book. And I'm like, you just gave me a different book, but okay. So
Bryce would do that for like funny. 45 minutes.
Just
book to book to book.
I guess it's good. Reading to them is definitely good. But Brandon, we have a couple different segments on the show that we like to do. We do a segment on baby gear. We do a segment on things our wife said. I'm going to introduce a new segment today, and we haven't done this in a while, but I'm going to call it Random Thoughts. Just random thoughts. Because basically, I had a random thought, and I don't know where this fits into our show, but this is a random thought that popped in my head this week, and I just, it's kind of me spewing what popped into my head. But basically...
Jerry's shower thoughts.
Exactly. So, Brandon, I'm pretty sure every single parent alive thinks their kid's the cutest kid in the world, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
They do, and that's pretty great. And I won't lie to you. I think Peyton's the cutest kid in the world. I think Bryce is a super cute kid, and so I think we've both been lucky having cute kids. But I think some of it must be scientific or something, because I think that it's like a defense mechanism or like evolution or survival of the fittest type thing where you have to think your kid's the cutest kid in the world, because sometimes when they do things and they're little terrors or driving you insane, if they weren't the cutest kids in the world, you probably would do things you don't want to. So I honestly, this week I was thinking, you know what? People always say, like, you're lucky, you're cute. But I think there's something to it. I think that as a parent, you have to think that they're the cutest kid in the world, because it does make everything else okay. Or even if they drive you insane 2 seconds later, they do something cute and you're like, okay, that's okay. Or even if they're doing something bad, it's kind of cute when they're doing it, which is also bad because it's like you don't want to like encourage them, but you're like, okay, that's
Yeah,
actually hilarious.
it's hard not to laugh or smile at them when they're
Right.
like, yeah, and it gets to the point where you feel like they know. At least I feel like Bryce knows how to be cuter when he's doing something he shouldn't do. Like he might turn his face over his shoulder a certain way, or turn around like side eye you, but make like a little like mischievous smile. And it's like, how do you pick up on that, and how do you know that that's like a way to potentially get away with something? Because
They're weird.
it's exactly how somebody would do something in like a movie. Yeah,
Does he make
you're onto
weird
something there.
faces? Does he make weird faces? Because Peyton will just randomly make weird faces out of nowhere, and
Yes.
I'm like, "What are you doing?" Like, I don't even understand. Like she's making crazy expressions, but not like in context. Just like random. Like she's from the movie Zoolander doing the model faces and stuff. It's
Not only does he
entertaining.
do that like regularly with like weird smile faces and stuff like that, but when I'm putting him to bed, or there's times where he shouldn't be, like I think I've said this before. If he wasn't my kid, I would think sometimes I'm like, man, what's going on with you, bro? Why are you looking at me like that? Like it's kind of crazy, especially at night when I'm putting him down to bed. It's like you got just like a single little light coming from like a night light, and we put him down, and it shines over his face just right, and he just staring at you and not blinking. And I'm wondering, who kid is this, and what plans does he have?
Stop
for
staring at
later?
me, bro.
Yeah, stop looking at me like that, man.
Yeah, Peyton makes
So
these
yes,
like
he makes weird faces.
she makes like these like scared faces, like big eyed, like eyebrow raising and like almost shrugging with it, and you're like, what are you doing? Like, why are you making like a
Coming out
oh
of
no?
nowhere.
I said like it's like randomly, and she'll make noises with it too, and I'm like, where do you get this from? Like, I don't know. It's funny. They're
just
goofy.
drama kings and drama queens.
They really are. But back to a segment we normally do, Brandon, baby gear. Kind of on the topic I was talking about with Peyton struggling to go to the bathroom. One thing that we did pick up that I didn't know was a thing. It's kind of cool. But everyone knows like your kids usually you give them probiotics, right? And for the longest time we were giving Peyton like the drops that you either just do the drops on the pacifier, like 5 drops and you put on the pacifier and you give it to the pacifier and then she has her probiotics for the day. But Macy bought it's from Culturelle, and it's Culturelle Probiotics Kids, and they're basically like little packets, kind of like the flavor water packets or like the liquid IV type packets, like that you rip, you pour into water, shake them up, and now they have their probiotics for the day. So I thought that was kind of cool. They're like little pouches. There's like 50 of them in a box. You can buy them from Amazon, but now they got their probiotics, but it's easier to give it to them. They're in their water they're drinking anyways, but that's also supposed to be good for digestive health and things of that nature. So those are fun things out there if you're looking at ways to give your kid probiotics. That's a little bit different than just the tiny little jars you're trying to perfectly get on the pacifier, or if your kid doesn't take a pacifier or decides they want to swat it when you're trying to give them and you waste the probiotics. It's a little bit easier to do.
That's pretty clutch. And I don't have a piece of baby gear this week, Jerry, but I do have a baby snack that has been clutch for Bryce. I've used clutch twice in the last 35 seconds, but he's loved it since he was a kid, and he was FaceTiming me earlier today while I was at work, and he was snacking on them while I was talking to him, and they're the Gerber for baby yogurt melts. They're little fruit melts come in a pouch. If he's not eating anything, a lot of times he'll eat those or his puffs, anything like that. Those are really popular, but seem to work really well for Bryce.
Yeah, Peyton has those too. She likes those. Although right now she likes to say no to everything, so she just will tell you she doesn't want something and then take it anyways. But yeah, those are pretty good. Those are good ones. Along with there's like little granola bars too that Peyton's been obsessed with lately that are kind of nice, but they're messy.
Bryce has all kind of bars and pouches but
Mm-hmm.
these are pretty safe to feed him. This and randomly Indian food. Like me and Kelsey love Indian food, but if there's ever a time where he's like been on a slight hunger strike, we know for a fact if we can go grab some Indian food, he will definitely eat it.
That's clutch. Yeah, fruit's our number one
it.
go-to. If she's not eating fruit, we got a problem. when she wasn't feeling good, she didn't want to eat a lot of things. So the other night she had like 2 oranges and like a piece of bread or something. She like wouldn't eat anything. So that's like the only thing
I
she
mean,
would
that's a
eat.
great thing to be a go-to, though.
Yeah, I guess
For
there's
the
worse
longest
things
time,
for
Bryce wouldn't even eat fruit.
No, she loves fruit, strawberries, oranges, bananas, blueberries, all of it. But meat, she's weird with. So we'll hopefully get past that. But Brandon, today the topic we're kind of going to talk about is kind of an interesting topic. So if someone is either expecting or early on with their first kid, or even in the middle stages, this is kind of mostly for them, but it's for everyone. Even parents that have kind of gone through it can kind of reminisce and hear what we're talking about. But what we're going to talk about is kind of looking back, if we could have a conversation with ourselves, kind of at the beginning when we found out we were pregnant, all the way until basically our kids turned like 1, what would we tell ourselves? Like, what would we say? Hey, this was smart. This is what you shouldn't do. This is the advice I'd give you, because we got a lot of advice back then and we thought we knew probably a lot back then. Some of it we were probably dead right on, and some of it we probably weren't so right on or would do differently, if you will. So I think it's kind of a fun topic, Brandon. And one thing I'll start off, and this is kind of maybe random, but I was almost against this beforehand, and it has been huge for us. But we together, before we had our kids, had a combined diaper party. And I would say that if you can, absolutely have a diaper party, because I legitimately didn't have to buy diapers for like most of Peyton's first year of life. Very, very rarely we ran out of size and stuff. And we still have diapers left over that we're going to use for the new baby because they're smaller sizes. And so I was like, oh, this is, we don't need to do that. It's not that big a deal. Who cares? It's been clutch. Like, I legitimately have bought diapers like twice since Peyton's been alive. So if you're on the fence about it, I say do it, because it's almost better than a baby shower, because you get a bunch of diapers, it saves you money, and it's convenient too. You don't even have to think about it. So that's my first tip. Or I would talk to myself, I would say, you know what, do the diaper party. In fact, invite more people if you want to, because it's great.
Yeah, I mean, that was on my list. And Bryce kind of grew up fairly fast, so we do still have some smaller sizes left over for whenever baby number 2 comes. Jerry believes that we're already pregnant. I can confirm that that's not accurate, but
Soon.
he'll continue to say that. But I mean, we still have he's been in 4s for like, it feels like 7 months.
He's in 4s?
So we've had to.
I didn't even know that. Peyton's in 4s. That's weird. Okay.
Yeah, Bryce has been in 4s since before he was 1 almost, I believe. Like, he's been in 4s forever. And he's starting to, like, we I mean, this is a segue we don't really need, but we started to put him in a 5, and it was still a little bit too big, so we have had to buy 4s because he's been in them for so long. But I have 5, 6s from the diaper party that we still haven't even tackled yet. So that is definitely very high on my list. One thing I would go back and say, and you can relate to this, Jerry, when you find out you're pregnant with your first child, especially, I'm saying especially, I don't know about the second one yet, but you feel a pressure, in my opinion, to like get everything ready, to have something to do, because while it's a shared excitement between you and your wife is the one who's experiencing like all the changes to their body. She can like tell when things are different. You kind of just going off of her feel. And so what I would tell myself is it's okay to not have anything to do. I was constantly trying to find stuff to do. I spent hours and hours and hours researching like different strollers and different car seats, and trying to make sure all that was taken care of. We researched the apps. I had like 3 different dad apps, and I would update it daily and read it. And you're trying to be a help, and I think to a point I was a help to almost be annoying, or it was almost annoying, because it's like, what can I do? You feel this weird responsibility that you maybe have never felt before, and I felt bad, actually, like not being able to help more when I felt like I was doing everything I can, especially when you get in those limbo periods where you can't quite baby proof your house yet or anything like that. But I can't editorialize every single one of these topics, or it's going to be an hour-long episode. But that's my first tip: is it's okay to not have anything to do for periods of time.
Yeah, I agree completely. My second one's very similar to that, and to expound on it, I would basically say, don't feel like you have to buy everything either. Like along with that, I felt like I had to keep being like, we need this, we need this, we need this, we need this. When the baby's born, we're not going to want to do all this because you think like in your head like, okay, when the baby's born, you're not going. But at the same time, newborns sleep a lot. You're not able to go out as much. So and if you need something nowadays with Amazon, you can get it. So yes, get the essentials. Yes, have your baby shower, but don't feel like you need to have everything, and don't just buy it to buy it. You can wait for the sale, or you can wait to see if your baby really does need something, or you can wait to see, like if it fits in the house, or how you feel when you need it, because worst case scenario, it's a day or two away from coming to you if you order it on Amazon. So, I would just say don't feel the need. I would tell myself, like, don't feel like you have to buy stuff. Like, you don't have to buy it just because someone down the street has it and said that it worked for their kid. See if you need it for your kid. So that's kind of expounding on yours, but kind of in the same breath. Don't need to buy everything.
Yeah, and to that end, I would recommend checking like Facebook Marketplace and places like that. If you are having that need or feeling that need, see if you can get it secondhand, because I can tell you from experience, a lot of this baby stuff, especially those like first 3 month stuff, they literally get used a few times, hopefully more than that, and then they are in a basement storage room waiting for either a next kid.
Well, and you're gonna have your
to
go-to
be discovered.
That's the other thing too. Like you'll find a go-to, and then if it ain't broke, don't fix it type of thing. So you got all this other stuff just in case, and it's like you don't ever need to use it.
So that's actually leads into my next tip, and that's set a budget with your partner and try to stick to it as much as possible. And this budget is specific for a few different stages. I would set a realistic budget for pre-baby, and I would set a realistic budget monthly for post-baby, because what you'll find is you yourself and your partner can
do
get
you
really
have a
excited
budget
about. No, I don't.
I was
I'm
gonna
talking
say,
to myself
we ain't got no budget.
This is me talking to myself.
I hear you.
You can look up, and you don't necessarily want to do the math on all the different baby items that, and I haven't done the math. And
don't do the math, Brandon. Don't do the math, Brandon. That's why you need to have another kid. It's actually to make yourself feel better about the
cost. You can get more
It's
ROI.
cost efficient, actually.
In that case, I might need 4 more.
Exactly.
At that point, I'll feel a bit
No,
better.
they'll just buy more. But trust me, from someone going through it right now, they're just gonna go out and buy it anyways for the new kid, even though you already got the
clothes
stuff.
for your second kid coming up than we did for Peyton.
Yeah, you guys. It was funny. We went to Target too just yesterday, and we saw what you guys had got. And Macy's like, "That's what Brandon Kelsey just got us," and I was like, "It is." But that was a mistake too, because we walked through the baby section, so naturally she wanted more stuff too. So, but yeah, you're right, Brandon. You're absolutely right. Having a budget is probably smart, especially if you or your partner maybe is more prone to like go. Off the handle, if you will, like and spend a lot of the money versus the other person. So you don't get mad at the person, basically. Brandon, my next one is kind of more in general for that first full year and even beyond that. But basically, I would tell myself to enjoy every stage. So what I mean is like it's easy to like, especially depending on how your kid is, like to like almost wish away certain stages or like anticipate going on. Like, so like, the baby's super little. You're like, I can't wait until they can roll over, or I can't wait till they can sit up, or I can't wait till they're not this colicky, and then you find yourself once they get past the stage missing the stage that you just got through, and you're like, oh, they're getting too big. I want that stage back. But then you're wishing that they were in the old stage and now you're enjoying the current stage. It's just constantly, you find yourself either wishing for the future or the past at times. And you need to just enjoy every stage. So I've been trying to tell myself that a lot lately. But it is important to remember every stage is exciting and fun and precious, if you will. And you need to enjoy them because they don't last that long. It goes by quick, man. And so, like, enjoy what you can because it's going to change and some of it's going to be fun and cool and exciting and new, but then some of the stuff you're not going to get back. So you want to enjoy it while you can. So the Bryce taking the books and bringing you new books, enjoy that because pretty soon he's going to want to read by himself and not have dad read to him at all. And then that's going to make you sad. So that's my advice is just try to look at the positives and enjoy the moment when you can.
Yeah, that actually is one of my biggest bullet points. If I had to power rank them, that would be near the top. I have it listed on my end as appreciate the moment as much as possible, even if you feel like you already are. I was talking to Kelsey about this list, and she helped with some of it. That's one we both agreed on, and then she shared with me a quote that she had just saw that kind of helped put it in perspective for her, and it basically reads, whenever I'm having a tough parenting day, I like to pretend I've traveled from the future to spend just one more day with my baby. It always helps me gain perspective. And that kind of hits the nail on the head. Sometimes we are just, even when you're trying to be in the moment, it 3 months later, it doesn't feel like you were. As crazy as that sounds. Like it's hard for me to even remember because the changes happen so quickly. It's hard to remember, and that is kind of leading to a next point I would want to make, and it's a cool thing about us having the smartphones and everything we have are a blessing and a curse because it's so easy to be distracted and live in the moment, but it's also super easy to record a ton, take a bunch of pictures. I know you specifically bought the size new iPhone that you got because you knew how many pictures you had and how much you wanted to capture. And I can't tell you how many times I go back and I'll see something and I forgot happened. And I remember as a kid growing up, my dad used to record stuff on his little handheld camcorder. They come out on those 3.5 millimeter tapes, if that's the size of them. We pop them in the little mini cassette player and watch our old home videos. But that's a big production. Our parents had to hold a camcorder to do it all. We got the same thing that we're holding every day, and you want to try to manage absolutely being in the moment, but it's still great because these moments are so fleeting to be able to go back and look at some of these days. So I would take as many photos and many videos as possible while you can still stay in the moment as well.
Brian, it's funny. We did not converse on these lists, but our lists are very similar. I had basically... This is
what happens every time.
I know, but my list was basically, or my point was to capture the moment while still being in the moment is what I put. So you want to still be in the moment, so you don't want to constantly have your phone out. I found myself early on always having my phone, constantly just trying to click pictures, and I'm like, no, I need to just enjoy it. And now I almost am the opposite, where I almost try not to, but then sometimes I'm like, man, I wish I would have gotten pictures of that or a video of that because that was funny or that was super cute. So it's finding ways to commemorate it. But there's different ways. It's not just pictures and videos. There's those picture books that you can print. There's little scrapbooks you can do or journals. People have journals. And honestly, for us, this podcast, because like you said, it is easy to forget, but this has helped us kind of put down on, it's not paper, but basically we're recording literally what is happening with our kids. So if we ever forget where we were at a certain point, we can go back and listen to it. So find that for yourself. What can you do? It might be, like I said, a journal or a scrapbook or, the chat books type of thing. Find what is, or it's just pictures on your phone, whatever it is. It's cool. One thing I do love too is all the digital picture frames that they have nowadays. So you can have all those pictures just rotating without having to print a ton of them. But that's another thing too, Brandon. Not to get sidetracked, but because we have so many digital pictures and digital picture frames, we haven't printed a ton of pictures of Peyton, and we need to do more of that. I actually want printed pictures in our house, so that's the one thing I need to work on.
The cool thing is it's there if you want it. And to piggyback one more time on the photos, one thing I do try to be intentional about is Kelsey's always snapping pictures, and she has a very nice camera that she takes pictures of everyone else with. But I think over the years, and this is not just with us having a kid, she misses out on seeing herself in these moments because she's so focused on trying to capture it for other people. So
Mm-hmm.
I try to be intentional about catching candid moments of her and Bryce, if I'm not involved. And I do the same thing with both her parents and my parents, because those are times I really want to remember down the line. And obviously the time that, like, especially her parents, that they have with Bryce is not as much as what we have or my parents. So it's also being conscious of when you're capturing the moments as
Yep.
well.
That's a really good point. One thing I'll mention too, if I could go back talking to myself, and this is something we did a good job decently early on, but I think it's actually important even more so early on is routine is crucial. It's super important, and it's important for the baby, but it's also important for you. And if you can get on a routine and create kind of a schedule for you, your partner, and the kid, that can be a lifesaver. It can really help you out, and it doesn't always work out because the kid's difficult or things happen. But I think for us, early on it was almost survival, and then honestly once we started getting a routine, it did help. So I would just say that a routine probably is more beneficial than you want to admit. Early on we didn't want to be those parents that were like, hey, we always have to be on this routine, and we're not still to this day, but there's still benefit of having a semi-normal routine. Like, you normally take a nap around this time, you normally, you know what I mean, eat around this time. So that does help, and it also helps people watching the kid too.
Yeah, and I mean, it can help you diagnose what may or may not be wrong, for lack of a better way to put it, with your kid. If you know that something is off, or maybe you're 20 minutes later or half an hour later than you normally are doing something, that helps inform that. Another thing for me, and I got a few more, is don't overthink milestones and don't compare your child with other children's progress. And this is something that was like big with me early, because like, especially even like doing this podcast is great, but Bryce is a few months older than Peyton, and I feel like she was crawling, or rolling over, was actually not crawling.
Yeah, rolling over.
She was rolling over consistently before he was. Like, he showed us like a one little time. I'm like, man, something wrong. This kid's like, he's developing fine everywhere else. I'm like, why is he not rolling over yet? And we come up here, I have to hear you talking about how much Peyton's rolling over. She's rolling over around the whole doggone house, and I'm trying to get Bryce to roll over one good time. And I'm being kind of funny with it, but I mean that's real life. Like, and a good list to look at from a milestone perspective is the CDC list, and they've updated it, and extended the ranges out. And part of the reason they did that is because your kid can be completely normal, and they might be a couple months out on something, and that doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. It doesn't mean that something's wrong with the kid, and it doesn't mean that another kid may be more advanced than yours or whatever. Even though Jerry will absolutely try to tell you that his kid is more advanced than yours. He's never actually said that to me.
I've never said that. Honestly, though, that's super hard because we're going through it right now, like with the
so
walking
hard.
thing, and honestly, she's right in the range and she is walking, but like, you talk about, like you said, like I'm on here, you're talking about Bryce, he's running now and he's walking all over the place, and I see him come in the store and he's walking, and I'm like, and then the hard part for us is it's almost like she can do it, but she doesn't want to. And that's so I'm like trying to make her want to, instead of, it's like she's going to do it when she wants to, but it's hard. And I know that in my head, but at the same time, it is super hard because you're like, is something wrong? It's like, why doesn't she want to? Is she going to, I started looking up like, well, she walks on her knees everywhere. Like, is that bad for development? And it's hard. That's something you're going to struggle with. And honestly, it's like that Bluey episode with the baby race, where it's like, as a parent, you want your kid to be ahead of schedule if anything, and then if they're slightly behind on some things, it can worry you because you start going worst case scenario, like, is something wrong? Do I need to help her? And then you start looking at yourself in the mirror too, like, am I doing something wrong? Did we not help her walk better or quicker? So yeah, I can 100% relate to that. It's difficult, but you definitely don't want to drive yourself insane with that, because it will not help you.
Yeah. And I can't remember if I went or you went last time. Like,
I got a few more. Yeah, I got quite a few more on here. One thing I'll put on here kind of quickly is kids learn faster than you think. I guess I didn't realize how like much they learn at such a young age. So don't be afraid to introduce things to them. Or like I was joking around teaching Peyton nose at such a young age, like where her nose was, and then she like learned it pretty quickly, and I was like, oh dang, I didn't realize that she could actually like understand that. And she was like holding a bottle super young, and I was like, oh, I didn't know that they could hold it. Just weird things like that. So I guess don't limit your kid from learning, or don't be like afraid to like try to like help your kid do, because if they can't, they can't. But like kids will learn things and they'll surprise you with what they can learn. So introduce them to new things, and if it's too early, it'll be obvious. I think, like even the first time I gave Peyton a ball with that little basketball hoop, she dunked it. I didn't really have to explain it. She just did it. It was like, okay,
Hey,
but like it's like, okay, well, I didn't know she knew what she could do with that. Or even like Macy gave her a marker and she figured out how to color. It's like, okay, I didn't know that would she would know what to do with that. Or that Tony's box. Like constantly she surprises me. So just don't limit your kid because you think that they're too young for something, because they might surprise you.
absolutely. Um, my next thing is not only your so you hear about like postpartum things with moms all the time, and basically there's a time period for however long after pregnancy where like moods may change, stuff like that. So if I'm going back and talking to myself, people think this conversation about to go a certain way. It's not just the mom. It's not just the moms that deal with that. And if for our long time listeners, they may remember this in the beginning. I I am quite confident that for a period of time after we had Bryce, I had postpartum anxiety, and it. I've never dealt with anxiety in my life. Didn't before that. I feel like I'm over it now. Um, I hope so. But it was like it was at times debilitating. Like I legitimately was having like chest pain, and I looking back on it, I did not realize it in a moment. But if I like look up what a panic attack was, I legitimately think that may have been what was happening. So hey, it's not just Kelsey who may be going through something. Everything's gonna be okay. You have to make time for self care. You have to make not you don't you have to make time and prioritize alone time with yourself, but also with your spouse.
Mm-hmm.
And I would do it. I would do it earlier than even Kelsey and I did. Like I would do it as early as possible. And it's tough to do that with the newborn in your mind, because every moment you have you want to take advantage of with them, but you also have to make sure that you're taking care of yourself, because those are gonna be it's a lot of sleepless nights, it's a lot of stress, and you need to spend time with your partner as well to make sure to check in and make sure everything's okay with them too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and everyone's different, but I know that Macy and I took a couple of short trips in her first year, which I know some parents absolutely like don't want to do, but I think that was big for us because, like I said, with those schedules we work with work, it's hard for us to get that alone time. So for us, that was key, and it wasn't easy, but I think it was important. A couple quick hitters, Brandon, that don't need a ton of explanation, but things I wrote down. Think about space in your setup. Like, I know you're going to think about like stuff when the baby's a baby right away, but then think about as you add and as you're growing and what you're going to need to keep and how you're going to have it set up and where you're going to put it. All those things are important because you're constantly adding stuff. I mean, anyone who's been listening to this podcast knows we constantly have to buy new stuff as they get older, but you're not most likely getting rid of the old stuff unless you're only going to have one kid. So it's important to like plan that out a little bit. I wrote have backups for your backups, meaning like if you have like childcare or someone that watches your kid, stuff can happen. People get sick. People have family emergencies. People have things happen. So you need to kind of have a plan, because I know one of the first times it happened to us, we were kind of like, what do we do? We didn't really think that far ahead. So it's important to think about those moments, the what ifs. And then I got a few more, Brandon. One more though I'll go before I go back to you is I wrote to socialize, something we talked about earlier. But obviously having your kid around early on, you're gonna want to like isolate. But like you want your kid to be around people, adults and kids alike. You want them to be used to seeing people And so otherwise they don't get that social anxiety, or they don't only want to cling to mom or dad. So I think getting them out, seeing other kids, other people at a fairly young age is important. And I think that interacting with them and people from all different types of people, but ages and everything, so that you get them comfortable around different types of people. So that's a few more I had on there.
Especially as we get further and further away from COVID, because
Yes.
that was the tough part about having a child in that time frame, is that it was the norm to shelter at home and not expose your kid to a bunch of different people, because you didn't know what was potentially coming for one reason or the other. My last couple things: trust your instincts. We went to the doctor a couple different times, or called the doctor, and were sent home without necessarily answers we want, and we still didn't feel completely settled, and so we pushed them for more answers, or to bring us back. And it turned out that in two different cases we were correct, and there was something a little bit more going on. So you're the one with your child, and I'd rather be a jerk to someone. Let me rephrase that. I actually would rather be a jerk to someone.
Would. Yeah, that's 100% accurate, even if you don't want to say it that way.
I shouldn't. The reason I hesitated, because I don't really feel like we were ever jerks, but we were firm and saying, "Hey, we want to get this checked out," and ultimately it turned out that it was necessary. And then a big one. This is something that I had to kind of look in the mirror, and this is my last thing. Recently, is help without being asked for me. So I'm good about like constantly asking, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? And that can be super annoying for someone. I'm talking about to Kelsey, who like is already doing a ton, and then they got to find something for you to do without you just getting up and doing it yourself. And so what I actually did was created what helps me on my day to day at work is setting like a checklist. That's something I can just cross things off the list as I go throughout the day. And so I did the same thing. I did a shared reminders tab in Apple Reminder with Kelsey on like just daily, weekly, every 4 days, basically it was basically a chore list. But as me or her get stuff done for the house, we check it off. Because what I was doing basically is, in my head, I'm helping out. I'm doing like the dishes and I'm vacuuming the floor, and she's like handling half the other stuff while she's working on it. She has a job just as much as I do, even if I work a few more hours than she does. So sometimes you got to look in the mirror and see what you may be doing or not doing. And for me, it was making sure that I'm keeping track of everything that needs to be done in the house, and we mutually are working through it. And so far, it's been successful for us, or for me.
That's a good idea. My last two things, Brandon. The first one I put, it says, having a kid's gonna change you, but don't let it don't let it make you lose who you are. And what I mean is, like, being a dad obviously changes you. It just does, and it changes you mostly for the better. But it's gonna change your life. It's gonna change your outlook. It's gonna change just your day to day. But you still at times need to work on yourself as a person. So as a husband, as a son, as a brother, as a what, you know what I mean? Like as a worker, and as just an individual. So you got to spend some time to focusing on your life outside of just being a dad, because sometimes it can be hard. It can almost make you lose your identity. And it's a huge part of who you are, but you don't want to make it the only part of who you are. So that's one thing, because sometimes I'm obsessive over things. So like if I focus on like being a dad, that's the only thing I try to focus on. So I got to remind myself, I know like at times like, hey, there's these other areas I need to focus on. And then lastly, just having a kid, I always knew I wanted to be a dad, and I always knew that like having a kid would be just the greatest thing ever. But like, it is a different type of love. Like your child is it's just anyone who has a kid knows that it is when you have that kid. And I think looking back, and just tell that can, it's an amazing thing, but it also can mess with you. So it's important to understand that, like, hey, it's so immense and it's a lot and unconditional that you have to just, I don't even know how to explain it, but like, like when they're sick, it's going to just totally mess with you because you want them to feel better. Or like you said, like if you feel like they're behind in something, it's going to wreck you because you feel like you're messing up as a parent. Or if you start worrying about like their future, it's just, there's lots of things that you're going to have these huge emotions, but it's key to like focus on like, hey, you're doing what you can doing. You're being a good parent. You're taking care of them, and the best thing you can do is just love them. You can't let it get too big for yourself. If that makes sense, Brandon. I don't know if I'm explaining that right, but it's a lot, and being able to handle that it takes time, but you can't let it get too big for you. You gotta focus on your kid the day to day. They don't know any better right now. You just gotta love them the way you can love them.
Yeah, it's you hit it exactly right, and actually that is on my list. Kelsey, that was Kelsey's thing that she said. I mean, she quote unquote said different love, and it's a different love than you have for your parents. It's a different love than you have for your siblings. It's a different love than you have for your spouse. It's just different, and it makes you soft. I can't watch certain shows anymore the same way. Like, dude, you're not watching what do you call that show on HBO?
Last of Us?
I can't remember. Last of Us.
Yeah.
You're not watching that, right?
No.
There are some episodes that then went down that just will wreck you emotionally. And it might have done it before. Actually, I'm not lying. It wouldn't have done anything to me before. But ever since I had Bryce, it's just it changes your emotional makeup having a kid. And
it does.
I catch myself just looking at him and just feeling like overwhelming love, and he is just
protectiveness in too. You like want to wrap him up and not like let him like experience.
That's where that
anything.
anxiety came from for me.
It's crazy. It is crazy. But I think that's a good place to wrap it up. Brandon, it's kind of fun looking back and talking to ourselves in the past tense. And now I get to do it all over again and probably do all the same things I told myself not to do again because that's just what we do as humans. But I think it's time for me to tell you.
You don't need that stroller, Jerry.
Hey, I love my stroller. That's actually one of the purchases I'm happy with. There's some that I'm like, but our stroller, I'm 100%. Still. Yeah, I love my car seat too. I don't have an issue with that. Although I think the whole convertible versus, I don't know, there might be something there. But anyways, I got a dad joke for you, Brandon, if you're ready.
I'm waiting with bated breath.
All right. Brandon, why can't you hear a pterodactyl go to the bathroom?
A pterodactyl go to the bathroom. Because the P is silent.
Because they have a silent P.
The P is silent. Let's get it.
That's pretty good.
I can guess one.
That's pretty good. Yeah. It's funny. Well, here's the bad part. I'll tattle on myself. When I read that joke, I was like, "There's a P in pterodactyl." so like it almost made me laugh more. I was like, "Oh." So man, I'll tell you one thing too. Little boy, and it doesn't just little boys, little kids that love dinosaurs know some stuff about dinosaurs. I don't think I ever learned. My little nephew can tell you like he's naming dinosaurs. I don't even know where dinosaurs, like crazy stuff. I'm like, what? And he's right. Like, it's crazy. It's cool. I like it. So we have some dinosaur books.
Dinosaurs and animals in general. I knew more about them when I was like under 6 years old than I do now.
I believe that.
I've forgotten all of the knowledge.
Oh, I believe that 100%. But Brandon, for everyone out there listening to us, if this is your first time listening to us, thank you. Hopefully you continue. If you've been listening to us from the beginning, we appreciate you, or anyone in between. Please like all of our social media pages. Please write us a review. Tell us what you think. Ask to be on the show. Give us a topic. Anything like that. We're happy to hear from each and every single one of you guys. But until next time, I'm Jerry, joined here by Brandon. And as always, you've been listening to Dad Jokes.